Why does the Pope wear a Jewish yarmulke? You ever thought about that? Where's the Jewish yarmulke? Why? Here at the Vatican, Cardinal Pacelli, who later became Pope Pius XII, he signs a concordance. Eugenio Pacelli, now Vatican Secretary of State, presides over the signing of a concordat between Germany and the Vatican in 1933. The Vatican signed contracts with the Nazis. There were two of them. They were called concordances. Now, how many people know that? The Pope signs contracts with Adolf Hitler. Here's Benito Mussolini in the Vatican signing contracts with the Vatican. Again, here's another cardinal meeting with all of the fascists on the left. Here are the priests hailing Hitler. Here's Pacelli. Now here's the Cardinal Nuncio, Papal Nuncio in Germany, talking to Adolf Hitler. Again, the fasci. Here it is on American coins, the fasci. Here it is in Rome. Take a good look at the fasci on that symbol. Here it is in America. Here it is on the American dime. It's a traditional symbol of republicanism, a fasci as its symbol. You know, Republicans have always used the fasci because they crawl on their knees before the Pope and the Mafia. You see on both sides of the podium, fascis. That's a fasci. And you'll see it with the President and on both sides of the podium. We can have the lights now. So in conclusion, let me say that what I'm trying to do is alert you and make you aware of the fact that the entire world operates on symbols, words, terms, emblems, national coats of arms, harlotry, flags. And for many years I have been fascinated with how much Americans don't know about symbols. They look at them every day. They haven't got the faintest idea what these things mean. The religious institutions that govern the Western world are as corrupt as any institution that's ever come out of the Western world. But I believe that there is a very powerful story encoded symbolically in the Old and New Testament, but it has been misrepresented. And unless and until we are ready to accept that fact, that there's something in the New Testament that you don't know, there's a symbolism there that's telling you something. And I am fascinated with how much we read things and don't know what we're reading. Let me give you one last example that I think is important and will make the point. On the first day of summer, the sun is as high in the northern sky as it's going to get. It's not going any further north than the first day of summer. It is directly overhead, as high in the northern hemisphere as it's going to get. Each day, from the first day of summer, each day it moves imperceptibly. It moves 1 degree southward each day, going southward. When it hits the halfway point, it is now crossing over the equator at the halfway point, and now it is going to fall. And that's why we call it fall, or autumn. Fall, because the sun is now falling. It's going. And consequently, it keeps moving until it hits the halfway point, which it crosses over the equator. Now it is the spring in the southern equator, and in the northern hemisphere it is now fall, coming of winter. But in, as I said, but in Rio and in Brazil it is now spring, because it's going to go 3 more months until it hits the first day of winter. And the first day of winter, the sun is as low in the southern sky as it's going to get. And that's the first day of summer for Rio. That's why the birds and smart people with money fly south. If you got money, you go south, follow the sun, right? So consequently, the sun, which was doing just fine, it was really hot and doing great. And then when it reached the halfway point, the constellation that it hits every fall is the constellation of Scorpio. Scorpio is the constellation that begins autumn, and therefore it's this kiss of death. The scorpion has kissed God's son, and now he's going to be led to his death in Capricorn. He's going to die. He is fallen. The great Son of God is fallen, and he's going to fall all the way down to the southern hemisphere until it hits the first day of winter, which is December 22nd. Yes. On December 22nd, the sun rises on the lowest latitude, on the lowest point in the southern sky. Now follow what I'm saying. The sun rises on the lowest degree on the 22nd. On the 23rd, the sun rises on the same identical degree. It's so perceptive. The U.S. Navy has the instruments to tell you it did not move 1 degree south, it did not move 1 degree north. It's on the same identical degree. On the 24th, it rises, and it's still on the same identical degree. Therefore, the ancient Egyptians knew that, and they said God's son was dead for 3 days. But on the 4th day, which is December 25th, United States Navy devices will tell you that the sun moved 1 degree northward. 1 small degree northward. It's just enough, because the ancient people said anything that was dead for 3 days and has just moved 1 degree northward is born again. It's come back to life. Now it is on its way back to the northern hemisphere. And consequently, when it gets to the next quarter point, which is spring, and at spring it crosses back over the equator, on its way back to, coming back to full grown and full into the northern hemisphere. Consequently, when you die today, we say the same thing the ancient Egyptians said. When someone dies, we say, grandmother passed last night, grandfather passed away, or uncle passed on. Always the word associated with death in the ancient world was passed. You passed last night. Grandmother passed on. But in the Egyptian, they said that when you died, you left from one world and went into another world. So you passed over into a next world. So when you died, they said, grandfather passed over last night. And I've even heard that term, grandmother passed over last night. Why? Because the sun, which was brilliant in the summer, it hit at halfway point, it crossed over the equator, so it passed over the equator going to the full summer in the southern hemisphere. In the spring, it's coming back, and it passes over the equator again, coming back. And in the ancient world, there was a celebration in the northern hemisphere because the sun, which was dead in winter, has been reborn on December 25th and has now come back to life. And they called it the Passover. So that the Passover is nothing more than the sun passing over the equator. The Passover. Okay? So consequently, when you're, it's a very holy, the Passover. What are you talking about? Sun worship, airhead? Wake up. That's all it is. It's just worship of the sun. Passing over. And so consequently, the Passover happens on the first week of spring. Well, isn't that strange? That it would happen in the first week of spring. Now, of course, Christians would not want to have anything to do with this because this is the Jewish celebration of the Passover. So Christians wouldn't have anything to do with that. But we're still going to be worshiping the sun, but let's say that instead of the Passover, let's say that God's Son is, say, resurrected. Let's say he's resurrected and has come back to life. Well, the Son has been resurrected, has passed over. And so Christians go out on the first day of Easter, Ishtar, and have an Easter sunrise service. Why? Because that's all it is sun worship. You're worshiping the sun on a sunrise service because the sun has passed over, and the Jews call it Passover, Christians call it resurrection. Wake up, it's just sun worship. And until such time as you understand that God does not have anything to do with ignorance, it has nothing to do with the pagantry and all the crap that we have been fed by government, religion, politics, church, and all of it. It's all manipulation. What we need to understand is that there is a divine presence in the universe that demands justice and demands intelligence. And that's what I'm here to do, to help people to understand, to get back in tune with the divine nature of the universe. And I believe that that's going to be required very soon, because when all the systems break down and the Christians for the first time begin to think about it, where is Jesus? I would have thought he would be back by now. You need to understand that there's a very powerful story in the New Testament that is telling us what God's thoughts are. But you need to understand it is symbolic, and there's a powerful story there. And one day, if I am invited back, I will do nothing more than for 4 hours do a whole theological discussion about the New Testament and the real story that's encoded in the New Testament, because I believe it's a very powerful story, but it's not the one you think it is. So consequently, my last comments are, I do not wish to offend, I wish to educate, because I believe that's what the divine presence in the universe would want, is truth. Know the truth and it will set you free. And I want to thank you. Oh, do we have any questions? And of course we do. Okay, let me get my mic. And remember, just because you got questions, that does not necessarily mean I can answer them. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Jordan, you've answered two very important questions tonight. I now know what who Ohm refers to, OMM, in the movie THX 1138, who George Lucas very, very cleverly put in as the god of that whole society that they talked to and who they addressed. And I also now understand why there was a dome in the original Daystar story, and I now know why that was not allowed to ever make it to the screen, and you told me it probably wasn't ready, there was something missing. I now know what the dome means, and here I put it in there, I didn't even know what it meant.
Right.
Thank you. Now I want to ask you, till the Daystar shines.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what Peter meant when he wrote that?
And the Daystar rises in your heart. Peter said to continue until the day star rises in your heart. The word day star, Lucifer. Lucifer is the day star. Lucifer is nothing more than the planet Venus. Go look it up in Encyclopedia Britannica. Lucifer is Venus. And Lucifer, being Venus, was the light bringer. And the ancient Roman religion, that's actually based on the ancient Egyptian, just in the morning, the early morning, the priest in the city of On and all the ancient priests who were sun worshippers would go out at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 to 4, and face the east, and when they would see the planet Venus rising. It's a beautiful, if you've ever been up at 4 o'clock in the morning to see Venus, it's magnificent. It's a beautiful, bright sky and the light in the sky. And the ancient peoples realized that when you see that star rising, the sun is right behind it. So it announced the coming of the sun. So it was a beautiful announcer, for the sun was coming. And so it was called Lucifer. Lucifer was the bringer of the dawn, the bringer of the light. And it's called the day star. The day star is the star that brings the day. Day star. Lucifer is nothing more than the planet Venus. Period. Go look at any encyclopedia, go look up in any reference work, I don't care if it's Catholic, Protestant, any Bible reference work, it'll all tell you, all of them, they will tell you Lucifer is nothing more than the planet Venus. But it's highly symbolical, and it means something. It means that light is coming into the world. But the scripture says that the light came into the world, but the world was not worthy of it. Intellectual and spiritual enlightenment is trying to tell you something. And what happens when somebody is intellectually enlightened and trying to teach you something? If you're sleeping in bed and you're sound asleep in bed and someone lights up a 600-watt bulb next to you, the first thing you're going to do is turn away. Why? Because it hurts your eye. You don't want to see it. And then you're going to be mad that somebody did that to you and woke you up with a 600-watt bulb. Why? Because intellectually, someone who is brilliant, who's trying to enlighten you, and you've been sleeping all your life, you're going to be offended that somebody has now caused you to have to think and giving you enlightenment. So consequently, that's what we see all the time. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. Lucifer is nothing more than the day star that brings the day. And it's been misused and misunderstood.
Is there a virtuous day star?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Symbolically, there's a very powerful story in the symbolism of Lucifer, the day star, who brings the light of day. It's a very interesting and very important story, yes. We'll talk about it later.
I just want to thank you for all this symbolism, because I'm really into it because of my art background and Flower of Life. But I just wanted to ask you quickly about, I heard somebody mention on the radio about the Twin Towers, about Gemini. Something about the Gemini, the stars,
the twins.
Twins for the Gemini, and also 9/11, huh?
Yeah, the twin phallic pillars too. I was showing.
Yeah, right away I thought it said Twin Towers when you were showing all the phallic signs. But I wanted to know if you could add anything on to that, and also the 9/11. Yes,
I will say this, that we today in the Christian West believe that astrology is all of the devil, and actually the word devil is nothing more than the D put in front of the word evil. You write evil and put a D in front of it, it becomes devil. Devil, evil, and God is actually taking one of the O's out of good, and it becomes God. God is good and devil is evil. It's just use of words. But in point of fact, there is a very powerful symbolism in this double phallic symbol. And so what I'm saying is that we've been given to believe and understand that astrology is evil, is of the devil and all that, and have nothing to do with it. Why? Because the church does not want you to discover the name of the tomb. The church does not want you to discover that for as far back as the human race goes, the kings, the rulers, the princes of the earth, all of the intellectuals, all of the most important people in the world know that the whole universe operates around the God's divine plan of the ages. It's astrology is from God. That's from the Bible. And consequently, until we have the proper respect for original astrological concepts, we're never going to figure out what these symbols mean and why we're in the trouble we are today. Astrology is a very powerful symbol. And it was used by the ancient Hebrews, it was used by the ancient Christians. And why do you think you have in the Bible, the Old Testament, the 12 brothers of Joseph? and the 12 tribes of Israel, and the 12 apostles. What are you talking about? 12, 12, 12. Why 12? It's the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 hours of day, the 12 hours of night. God's Son, that's why 13 is an unlucky number. God's Son, with His chosen 12, is a divine number in heaven, 13. So consequently, the whole of Western civilization is based, all religion is based on astrology. We just don't know that. And that's why the church has told you have nothing to do with it, because they don't want you to know the real truth. We need to understand astrology is the basis for all religions in the world.
And then the 9/11?
The 9/11, I could get into that too, but...
another time?
Yeah, another time, because
okay.
it would require too much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is that my phone number is 505-9911. 9/11, that's my new phone number. 505-9911. 9/11. Anyway.
I just wanted to ask you if you had any comments on the red planet Mars, and if there was any symbolism to the fact it recently passed at its closest point to the planet Earth, and we're now in a war.
Yeah, let me say this. That opens up a whole can of worms, because I met many times, but I met up in Oakland about 4 or 5 years ago. I met up in Oakland with about 8 other people. It was a secret meeting I was invited to. And for 3 days and 3 nights, we were all enclaved at the hotel. Richard Hoagland was there, Richard, myself, and there was 6 or 7 other people. And what we did is we paid for the restaurant in the hotel. We paid, all of us chipped in and paid for the particular table in the back of the restaurant for 3 days. We took it over and commandeered it for 3 days. And the idea is that the 8 or 10 of us, whatever it was, would sit there from morning till night and go through each other's work. Richard Hoagland sat right with me for 3 days and heard all of my material, heard it all. And we talked about Mars, and he divulged a lot of stuff that he's never talked about in public. And that was a very fascinating time. Incidentally, he went on Art Bell and was talking about all the Masonic symbolism at NASA and all that stuff. And that was my stuff. I'm the one that told me that. And I called him after I heard him on Art Bell. I called him and said, I told him, I said, Richard, it was great, sensational. I said, where'd you get all that information? He said, oh, well, I got it from you. I said, you got it from me? 3 hours I sat and listened to you on Art Bell. I didn't hear my name. Did I hear my name? I was wondering where you must have got that from. I thought we had an arrangement. What we said up there in San Francisco, up in Oakland, was not ever to be discussed in public. Right? So I'm the one that brought David Icke to America, incidentally. So if you like David Icke, I'm the one that brought him here. If you don't, I'm the one that brought him here, and I'm not very happy about that. I'm very unhappy with David Icke. But anyway,
Thank you.
Yeah, I brought David Icke to America, and I financed him to make him a star. I seen the day he doesn't even talk to me, doesn't even say hello. But Mars, yeah, I think that there's a whole story about Mars that has not been told, and it's going to come out, that there might very well be life there now. Do you know that Tom Van Plender has a website, and he's one of the most legitimate, de jure, real physicists, plasma physicists in the world today, a very important man. And he has on his website pictures of artifacts on Mars's surface that I've never seen before. He's got pictures, actual zoomed in pictures. And you got to remember, Tom Van Planters is a very important man in the world of science today. And he's got pictures of cylinders on the face of Mars going into the Earth, into Mars and coming out they're like a subway system, and it's like plastic or glass, and you can see the wrappings around, some kind of material wrapped around these cylinders. They must be huge, but they come out of the surface of Mars and go back in. They go behind huge mountains and come back out and go back down again. It looks like a subway system. And when you look at this thing, you tell, what the hell is a subway system doing on Mars? And in this article, he's saying that there are many things that NASA has known that's on Mars that they haven't told you yet. Subway systems, and this is very highly technical, the way he explained it, to be able to do what whoever this was that did it, to be able to build around mountains and sweep down into the ground, come back out over here, go around the mountain over here and come back in. Who knows how to build subway systems like that? And you can see through them. You can actually see through them. So they're either plastic or glass or plexiglass or something. I think that there's a lot more going on the planet Mars right now, and there may even be a civilization there now watching us. Maybe that's where we came from originally. I mean, I've sat with Zachariah. I sent Zachariah Sitchin around the world, I think 6-7 times. I sent him to Egypt. I sent him to Mazatlan. I sent him to Turkey. I sent him to Israel. I sent him to Egypt. I sent Zachariah to 7 countries of the world. I did it personally. I sent him, and I was going to do a 13-week mini-series with Zachariah. And Zachariah is sensational. I love him. But I did a contract with Zachariah where my company in San Diego was going to finance a 13-week mini-series we were going to sell to PBS. And he agreed to do it. And we sent him to 7 different countries. And then the poor mentally deranged moron that I was working with that held the checkbook decided one halfway through the project that she didn't want to finance it anymore. She didn't want to do it anymore. That's it. And I had to call Zachariah and tell him, Zachariah, you're not going to believe this. You know, this woman has pulled out on us at the last minute. She's got the money, but she just decided she didn't want to do it anymore. And of course, my feeling is Zachariah Sitchin, he doesn't care. I mean, hell, I sent him around seven countries of the world and sent him to all the best hotels and financed him and sent him all over the earth. Hey, if you got any other brilliant ideas, don't give me a call. I mean, he wasn't offended. But there's all kinds of people that I have been in contact with for many, many years behind the scenes that I've never told anyone. And 12 years ago, I produced a video called Matrix, Matrix of Power. And I got all kinds of phone calls from Hollywood stars, from all kinds of motion picture people, talking to me, oh man, a sensational idea of a Matrix, a Matrix of Power. And then, of course, they come out with a movie called Matrix. You know, so I've been on the cutting edge of this stuff for many years, and I have Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell used to get my stuff out in Santa Monica at the Mandela Books, and some of the stuff that was in my old basic slide presentation ended up in one of the movies called Stargate. I mean, I've been supplying Hollywood, and I know I've been doing it because I get phone calls from big-name movie stars saying, oh, that was sensational. Well, we ought to make a movie on that. And then a year or two later, there's a movie on it. And so last time I got a very important movie star called me and said, oh, man, your stuff is sensational. I love it. Got all of your tapes. And I said, do you really like it that much? Oh, yes, sensational. I said, did you ever send me a check? You know, you ever thought about cutting me a check? Oh, no, well, no, there's no problem. We'll do that. Yeah, I'll get around to that. No, I've never received a dime from anyone. Not even a thank you.
I have a question. I know that you said that you were going to talk later about, or on another occasion, about your interpretation of the New Testament.
Hopefully, I will.
Well, hopefully you will, yes. But what about the avatar stories from around the world? You know, the ancient Krishna and Rama and Osiris stories and so forth. I also, years ago, heard someone talk about the incident in the New Testament in which Lazarus is described as rising, and showing that the exact same story occurs in ancient Egyptian mythology, where Bethany is Betanu and Lazarus, I believe, is Lazareu. I mean, it's exactly the same story. The names are changed just ever so slightly. So there are obviously these correspondences through time and different places, but what do you think about the fundamental concept of the avatar phenomenon?
I think that Manly P. Hall said it best. He explained that whole thing in a lecture once, where there seems to be a divine mandate in heaven that in all periods of darkness, when there seems to be darkness encroaching on the human family, that the spirit of the universe calls out individual people and your spirit is moved to do something to help your fellow man, to be a teacher. And so there have always been teachers who have been called in the last and final parts of a dark time on the earth, where the universe puts it into certain people's hearts to be like an avatar, to be like a teacher. Well, we don't have any problem talking about Isaiah, Jeremiah, any of the prophets of old, and Joel and the Apostle Paul, but to bring it down into modern day, now that's different. Now, if you're going to talk about God's leading you to do something, you must be an idiot. Now, Billy Graham, we understand he's being led by the Lord. Go look in the Oxford Dictionary of the English language. Look at the word Lord. L-O-R-D comes from L-A-R-D. That's the way it was spelled in the King's English, Lord. So consequently, when I see, I'm serious. This is why Christ is the Christos, is oil. Well, congealed oil is the Lord. But the idea of an avatar or a teacher has been with us for thousands of years, and it's true. Every time the world is heading into darkness, it seems like God or the divine presence in the universe moves certain people in their heart to stand up against the darkness and help their fellow man, like the scripture says, just carry even one candle will light a darkened world. So I believe that there is something to this idea that God raises up individuals to enlighten his fellow man in dark periods of history.
Could I ask you one other question about astral theology? Have you looked into the Mayan calendar? What do you think about that?
Well, I think the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Incas and the Toltec and all of those ancient people, I think South America and Central America is just cram-filled with interesting ancient stuff. And we tend to feel that the Egyptians and the people from that area of Africa and in Europe somehow or another got over here to South America because we still have the same pyramids and the same symbolism. We find the same symbolism in Central and South America we find in the Middle East. And so obviously they came from the Middle East and Egypt and Africa across to South and Central America. I'm saying, maybe not. Maybe it started in Central America and South America and went to that way. Why do you, and I am totally convinced in my own mind that the most ancient cultures on the face of the earth, as in South America and Central America, probably 100,000 years old or more, in Peru and Brazil and that whole area of the world, I think, is just replete with ancient stuff that far, far exceeds anything Egypt ever did. So I'm seeing that there's a whole world of questions that we've never been allowed to ask. I think that Central and South America is the epitome of ancient civilizations. I don't even know, I don't think that the ancient Mayas and the Aztecs and those people, those are the ones we know of. I think that there were some very old ones, like Earth Base 1. Earth Base 1 is in the Andes. It's as high up in the Andes as you can get. And it is it's so high up that people going there today can hardly breathe. Even mountain climbers say it's very difficult to breathe. It's so high up, and yet the stones are like 100 tons, 300-ton stones, and they're all cut flawlessly and pieced together. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, who moves 200-ton stones in air that even the best mountain climbers can hardly catch their breath? And there's no way to plant food up there. You don't plant anything up at that height. So how did these people feed themselves and move 200 and 300-ton stones? And not one, from all over. They're just huge temples built with these stones. And I'm saying somebody better start looking at this. I'll tell you what I think really happened. I think that we are a creation of someone else. I think that's what happened. I think somebody came here a long time ago and created us. No. And they're still with us.
Where is Earth Base 1 that you refer to?
It's I'm not sure. I think it was Ecuador, but I'm not sure. But I'll tell you where you can find it. Well, you just look for it. It's just called Earth Base 1. You can look for it in reference works. And on the web, they got a lot of material on Earth Base 1. They call it Earth Base 1 because it seems to be the oldest city on the earth. Incidentally, they say Jericho was the oldest city. No, Jericho is not the oldest city in the world. Heaven. Earth Base 1. Now that's old. You know the story about the walls come tumbling down from Jericho? There's only one problem with that story. Jericho never had any walls. You know, I don't know how the walls could fall down from Jericho when they never had any walls. But we don't let things like that bother us.
But what I was referring to about the Mayan calendar, 2012, I mean, do you think...
2012, I know. I don't know what that's going to bring, but I got a feeling something as very big is going to happen in 2010 to 2012. We're already in the age of the fifth sun now? I think that's what they call it. All of that kind of stuff, I think, is very, very legitimate. I'm not a world's foremost authority on it, but I know enough about it to know it's very legitimate. Yes?
Hold on a second. They want to do a quick tape change.
Okay.
So then I got my two questions.
I'll drink to that.
Okay.
Incidentally, I did a television. I've done quite a few here lately. I did a piece for Discovery Channel. I did one for Learning Channel. I did one for Arts and Entertainment. I did one for CBS.
Okay. We're rolling.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I was just going to tell you something that happened on that.
Well, go ahead, and then I'll ask
occasion when I was working for. That kind of points up what the networks are all about. Well, let me just tell you very quickly. I was hired to do 3 of a 4-part series. The 4th one I didn't work on, but the 3 I did. And the 4th one was, the one I did not work on. You may have heard about it. It's called The Incredible Discovery of Noah's Ark on CBS. I did not work on that one. That was the 3rd in the series. The first 2 was the Ancient Mysteries of the World Part 1 on CBS and Ancient Mysteries of the World Part 2. Then came the Incredible Discovery of Noah's Ark, and then came the 4th one, which is Ancient Mysteries of the World, in which Anthony Hilda was on that one with me. But the 3rd one in line I did not work on, happily, because there were a lot of lawsuits and a lot of bad blood because of that, and the production company out of Utah went broke because of it, because of the lawsuits. And the reason why is because a lot of atheists and agnostics and humanist organizations and people around the country got really upset because CBS did not put a disclaimer saying that this is just entertainment. We didn't really find Noah's Ark. But they didn't do that. They said the incredible discovery of Noah's Ark. And they went on to show, here's the pictures of Noah's Ark, and it was so ludicrous. It was so incredibly ludicrous. I was laughing at it. It showed the guy taking a picture of Noah's Ark, and then it said, but he fell off the ledge, and they couldn't find him because he died in the snow. And so that's why they don't have the camera in the original picture. And I'm thinking, well, if you don't have the original picture, what the hell are we looking at then? you know. And what are we looking at if you don't have the original picture? And so consequently, I was called back to work on the fourth one, and so I asked the field director, I said, did you guys got a lot of heat from that last one you did on the incredible discovery of Noah's Ark? He said, yeah, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of stuff. And I said, did you guys really find Noah's Ark? And he said, come on, this is America. You don't have to be intelligent here. This is just entertainment. You know, I mean, this is America, my God. This is not Europe. You know, you don't have to be intelligent here. You just tell the people what they want to hear. And I thought, wow, that's you know, that was over dinner with the whole crew. And I asked him, you really find, he said, come on, we tell the people what they want to hear. This is CBS. It's just the money. It's just a business, okay? We tell people what they want to hear. So that tells you something about CBS and the rest of them.
Well, it's Hollywood.
Touche. So what's your question?
Okay. My old friend, my good friend. First one, I want to make a note about Darth Vader. He's also Lord of Sith, S-I-T-H.
Good.
So I follow the Star Wars stuff, so I figured I'd want to give you that pointer there.
Throw that one in, okay.
So it's documented now. My first question is regarding Isis, Ra, Elohim.
Yeah, Isis, Ra, El.
Okay.
Isis was a feminine principle of wisdom in Egypt. It's spelled I-S-I-S, Isis. Then the coming of one of the pharaohs changed the worship of Isis to the worship of Amun-Re, Amen Ra, which is incidentally why Christians still say Amen at the end of the prayer, because they're sending the prayer through God's Son, Amen Re, Amun Ra, Amen. And consequently, when the Phoenician Canaanites, when the Hebrews went north into Palestine, they encountered a people that were already there for thousands of years. They were called Palestinians, which was very clever. I mean, that's where you would expect to find Palestinians, is in Palestine. And so when they went into Palestine, they had already learned all the wisdom and the religious teachings of Isis, spelled I-S-I-S. Then they learned the new concept of the new religion of Amun-Re, R-A. And now they encountered the Palestinians, and the Palestinians' god was El, the planet Saturn, L-E-L. Consequently, the religion grew out of Isis, Ra, El, I-S-R-A-E-L. Israel is nothing more than Isis, Ra, and El. Consequently, there's nothing holy about Israel. And why is Jerusalem called the holy city? The holy city is because, they're full of holes. The holy city is because every kind of licentious, filthy, degenerate religion that can come into the mind of men has been practiced there. Everything from child sacrifice, pornography, violence, human sacrifice, I don't care how filthy it is or how dirty it is, they were doing it in Jerusalem. And that's why symbolically God's Son, the light of the world, would say to Jerusalem, 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 killer of the prophets and stoner of those sent to you. Anything that is truly enlightened and intelligent wouldn't have a damn thing to do with you. All you do is child sacrifice, pornography, violence, money grubbing, money changers. The whole thing was filthy from day one. There ain't nothing holy in Jerusalem. Ain't never been nothing holy in Jerusalem, and there's nothing going to be holy in Jerusalem, Salt Lake City, Rome, or any place else. Religion is nothing more than manipulation of the human mind. There is a powerful spiritual dynamics to the universe, but unhappily most Americans haven't got into the faintest idea about any of that. And I think that that's what's coming. I think there's going to come a time when we're going to start thinking in terms of, wait a minute, let's back up and look at this all over again. Who are we really, and what is astrology, and what is the Bible, and who really wrote it? And that's what I'm hoping to do, to be able to enlighten people that there's something else going on we haven't been told. Yes, okay. What else?
And the final thing is, a friend of mine wanted me to ask you, what is the Jesus, the oil Christ story actually fit then? What is the Or who is Jesus Christ to you, or is your understanding of these things?
Well, Christ is merely oil, and oil was used to anoint kings and princes, and all of the ancient world. All the ancient world always anointed their kings and rulers and princes with oil. They poured it in the head of the kings and princes, and therefore you were anointed. The word anoint was a word that was used in relation to sex. And so the king always represented the penis head. The king was always the big cock in town. He was the major penis head. He was the major man. He represented the male fertility. And all the women belonged to him. He was the king. So he represented the male phallic. And in the ancient world, they always lubricated the head of the male phallic in sex. So that's why you would anoint the head of the king. The head of the king represents the head of the penis, because the whole concept of man ruling is a sexual thing. It's been around for thousands of years, the war between male and female. It's a war going on between male and female. And in the patriarchal system of things, the king represented the male phallic. And we got a bunch of Peter heads still running in Washington, D.C. They're all a bunch of penis heads. They think with their penis. They think with their penis. That's all they are. That's all. You know, Bill Clinton, he thinks he's the only one. That whole thing is filthy. It's nothing more than sex and power. We're talking about mafia, sex, drugs, entertainment, buying and selling. Anyway.
Hello, Jordan.
I hope I don't offend anyone.
That was great, and my name being Christopher, which involves the Christos or
Bless
the
you,
Christopher,
my son.
yes,
Bless you.
carrier of Christ or whatever. I've had to go with that my entire life.
I think it's a wonderful name. I think it's a wonderful name.
It made me think there when you were talking about it, how, you know, oil, of course, to the ancient world was also things that kept an artificial light going in the darkness.
Exactly.
So that's probably where that applies. I had seen you before talking about the water carrier, the bringer of water, like in the Last Testament.
Aquarius. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the symbology there as it applies astrologically now that we're going from the Piscean into the Aquarian?
In Luke 10:22, in the book of Luke, Jesus is saying to his chosen 12, this is a symbolic story, and Jesus is saying to his chosen 12, they ask him, where are we to go now that we are going to celebrate the last Passover? Where are we to go? And he says, go into the city, and you will see a man carrying a water pitcher. Go into the house of the man with the water pitcher. Well, anybody who has ever read anything about astrology knows that the house of the man with the water pitcher is the house of Aquarius. So every 2,000 years, and everyone has a different calculation. The Chinese say it's 2,150 years. The Egyptians said it was 2,125 years. The Sumerians said it was 2,100 and something years. So everybody's got a different calculation. That's why Jesus said, no man knows the day or the hour, only the Father who knows. But every 2,000 years, the sun enters a new constellation of the zodiac at the equator. If you go to the equator and stand right on the equator and look east, and when the sun rises, you will see a constellation of the zodiac. And for 2,100 years, the sun rises on that constellation. But you will see it at the beginning, it's over here. And for 2,100 years, the constellation keeps moving until it hits a point over here, and now it's leaving. And now the next constellation is coming in. So every 2,100 so years, the next constellation moves in. So God's Son is our risen Savior. He rises in the next constellation of one of his chosen 12. And so in Luke 10:22, he says, go into the house of the man with the water pitcher. What we're talking about is Jesus was the great fisherman, represented by the fish, because it's Pisces. We've been living in the age of Pisces for 2,000 years. So when we hear people today saying we're living in the end times, the last days, we are living in the end times, last days of Pisces. And before Pisces, go backwards. This is the way you do it. You go backwards in the zodiac, not forward. What was the constellation 2,000 years before Jesus? Was the Aries, the ram. That's why the Jews blow the ram's horn. The shofar is when the sun would come up, they would blow the ram's horn, because it's the 2,000 years of Aries, the ram, God's son in the age of the ram. And that was, and then of course Moses inaugurated the 2,000 years of Aries, the ram. They blow the ram's horn. And that's why when Moses comes back down from the mountain, he sees the children of Israel worshiping a golden calf. Golden, the sun. Calf, Taurus, the bull. The Taurus, the bull, golden calf. Consequently, the Jews were into astrology. And they realized that every 2,100 years, the Son, the Redeemer, our risen Savior, will come back into His kingdom. And now we're waiting for God's kingdom to come and His will to be done on the earth as it is in heaven. Meaning that we're waiting for the sun to rise on a new dawn, a dawning of a new era, in which mankind will now step into the age of Aquarius for the next 2,000 years of human existence. The Bible is replete with this stuff, and all you got to do is spend hours and days and weeks at the seminars and the seminaries and talk with the rabbis, and they all tell you, of course, that's what it's all about. I had one of the highest ranking rabbis in America. I'm not going to give you his name because people will see this, and I don't want them calling him. But he's back in Massachusetts. He's probably gone now. This was many years ago. But we used to talk about this. He was a head of a very powerful rabbinical association. And I used to ask him, I said, Rabbi, tell me the truth. Was there an Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? I mean, did these people actually live? And he said to me, look it, you've got Isis, Osiris, Horus. You've got Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. You've got Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Hey, we're Jews. We've got to have something too, right? Everybody's got to have a triune God. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Osiris, Horus, Isis, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. So we got to have something. Okay, so we got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How do you like that? Well, was there an Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? I don't know. Was it an Osiris, Isis, and Horus? No. Well, it's just a story. There was no Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was no Abraham. Abraham, the Jewish reference works will tell you, was Abram. 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 Ab, A-B, in the ancient Hebrew meant father, and Ram was the ram, Aries the ram. He was your father for 2,000 years. He was your father. Abram. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is nothing more than the triune God. And the triune God is nothing more than the sun in the rising, the sun at 12 noon, and the sun in the evening. The newborn, the full-grown, and the man that dies. The triune God. And that's why it's still the sun. It's the sun in the morning, it's the sun at high noon, and it's the sun at night. So it's still the same God. It's three persons in one God. Yeah, the one God is the sun, and there's 3 points in His life. So consequently, this is a fascinating material when you start talking to the rabbis and doing the research, and you find out, my God, how long have you known this? You know, have you known this all your life? Yeah. And I said to him, why don't you tell other people this? And this is fascinating stuff. And he said, look, what do you want me to do? I got to go out and get a job? Come on. You know, if I tell people what the real truth is, I mean, I'm not going to be a rabbi very long. So anyway.
As far as you know, is there any validity to the stories of Jesus fathering children to Mary Magdalene?
That's the very interesting, that's Holy Blood, Holy Grail, British Israel, Holy Blood, Holy Grail material. That's very interesting. I don't think so at all. I don't think there is. I think it is a front. I think it is a story that's being put out by the Illuminati to give legitimacy to their coming world power, that they want to run the world, and therefore they got legitimate reasons because Jesus is their father, their great-great-great-great-grandfather. So I don't think there's any validity to it at all, but I do think British Israel Freemasons are using it. The British Israel philosophy is nothing more than a front for a group of men who think they're going to control the world, and they're trying to lend legitimacy to it by saying that Jesus fathered them. I know that whole story. Believe me, I've been following it for years. It first came out to my attention from Holy Blood, Holy Grail with Agent Leon Lincoln, but my God, since then there's been about 25 books written on that subject of Jesus fathering children. I don't believe it for a minute. I think it's a front story. I think it's a cover story for the Illuminati who's trying to take over the world and make themselves look legitimate.